Why does it seem like the public is, at this point, being purposely misled or being treated like we have the intelligence of a 5-year-old? It is truly mind-boggling. It is mind-boggling for me, 1, for Charlie's family, 2, for the honor of Charlie, and 3, for the fact that we are a nation who understands guns very well. Now, like I've said before, I'm gonna do an entire breakdown of everything involved with it. But we've all been looking for the answers as far as, was this an exit wound? If it was, where is the entry? Who actually shot him? Was the guy on the roof actually the guy? If he was, why was he running off the roof with no apparent gun in his hand? Oh, he took it apart, because that makes sense when you're trying to get away from a murder scene. You're going to sit there on the roof and take your gun apart just so you can put it in your backpack, and then you're going to reassemble it and dump it in the woods just so whenever they find it, it looks picture perfect for them.
5 minutes ago, everything changed. A leaked medical report, circulating quietly through encrypted channels, has just confirmed what no one in the official investigation ever dared to say out loud. Charlie Kirk was not shot from the front. He was shot from behind. For weeks, the story we were given was simple, even cinematic. A lone shooter, a chaotic crowd, a moment of madness caught on camera. But now, the entire foundation of that story is cracking open because the very first piece of verifiable evidence, the medical report from the trauma team that tried to save him, contradicts everything the public was told. According to the document, the bullet entered through the upper right side of Kirk's neck, angled sharply downward before exiting near his throat. That means the shooter wasn't in front of him as claimed by law enforcement, but somewhere behind, close enough to fire a clean, controlled shot. That detail changes everything. The angle, the motive, and even the identity of the real gunman. And if that's true, then the story that flashed across every news outlet, every live stream, and every official statement was not just wrong, it was orchestrated, because a back entry wound isn't a minor discrepancy. It's a smoking gun. It means that the cameras, the witnesses, and even the narrative built around a so-called front-facing confrontation may have been manipulated before the evidence was ever analyzed. Someone, somewhere, wanted the public to believe a version of events that was physically impossible. And that raises a chilling question. Why? Why would anyone in power want to rewrite something as basic as scientific, as the direction of a bullet wound, unless the truth of that angle, the truth of where that shot came from, points to someone they cannot afford to expose? The leaked medical report doesn't just challenge the official story, it completely destroys it. Buried within a section labeled Trajectory and Wound Morphology, the attending surgeon's notes describe something unmistakable: a posterior entry wound with an anterior exit tear. In plain language, that means a bullet entered from behind and exited to the front of Charlie Kirk's neck. The force pattern, tissue rupture, and bone fracturing all confirm a downward, back-to-front path, not the straight, frontal trajectory we were told about in every press conference. Forensic experts who reviewed the diagram say it's impossible to confuse the two. Entrance wounds are typically smaller, cleaner, and often surrounded by powder residue if fired from close range. Exit wounds, on the other hand, are jagged, explosive, and much larger. The report clearly labels a chest wound as an exit. That's not interpretation. That's anatomy. So, if the official version claimed the shooter stood in front of Kirk, face-to-face, weapon drawn, then this medical report exposes a monumental lie. Because the evidence inside Kirk's body shows the exact opposite. It tells us that the fatal shot came from behind, possibly at an angle suggesting elevation, meaning the shooter could have been standing on a raised platform or behind the stage entirely. Now ask yourself this: why would the hospital's report be redacted? Why would entire sections describing the wound's measurements, depth, and bullet trajectory be blacked out in the final public release? Because the moment those lines see daylight, the official timeline collapses. The crowd shooter theory disintegrates. And what remains is far more sinister. An inside angle, a position that only someone with authorized access could have taken. This isn't just about a bullet. It's about who was behind Charlie Kirk when the trigger was pulled and why that truth was buried beneath layers of silence and redaction. For weeks, the official narrative surrounding Charlie Kirk's death stood like a wall, immovable, reinforced by headlines and repeated by those in power. According to authorities, the fatal shot was fired during a direct confrontation. A single bullet, they said, entered from the front, consistent with an assailant facing Kirk head-on. It sounded clean, clear, and final. But when has the truth ever been that simple? Behind closed doors, whispers began to grow louder. Some of the first responders noticed things that didn't quite align. The way Kirk had fallen, the unusual blood pattern on his shirt, the lack of close-range residue that would normally appear in a frontal shooting. But those observations never made it into the initial press release. They were quietly omitted, buried beneath procedural jargon. Then came the leaked medical report, the document no one was supposed to see. Its conclusion was direct and damning. The bullet entered the back of the neck, exiting near the jawline. That single detail changed everything. If true, it means Kirk was not facing his attacker. He was turning away, or worse, he never saw the shot coming at all. It's a revelation that sends shockwaves through everything we thought we knew about that night. If the official report was wrong, was it a simple mistake? Or something more deliberate? A manipulation designed to protect someone powerful? Witnesses who had stayed silent began to speak out. A security guard recalled hearing 2 distinct gunshots, not one. A student near the west corridor remembered seeing Kirk's silhouette facing away from the direction authorities claimed the shooter was standing. Each account chips away at the illusion of certainty. And as the evidence continues to unravel, so does the credibility of those leading the investigation. It's becoming clearer with every new detail. Someone has been rewriting the story of how Charlie Kirk died. But the question now is, why? When the medical examiner's notes finally surfaced, what they revealed wasn't just shocking. It was devastating to the official narrative. The document, marked confidential and dated just hours after Charlie Kirk's autopsy, details the wound trajectory with chilling precision. According to the findings, the bullet entered from the upper right back and exited near the lower left jaw, leaving behind tissue disruption consistent with a shot fired from behind, not face-to-face. That detail alone overturns the entire story that had been fed to the public. For weeks, we were told Kirk had engaged in a heated confrontation, suggesting a mutual exchange, a standoff. But if he was shot from behind, then the word confrontation collapses entirely. This wasn't a standoff. It was an ambush. Forensic analysts who reviewed the leaked file said the back entry wound pattern also rules out several earlier claims. There was no gunpowder residue around the entry point, which suggests the shot was fired from a medium to long distance, possibly 8 to 12 feet away. That means the shooter wasn't close, wasn't in direct argument, and likely fired as Kirk was walking or turning away. Even more alarming are the internal notes from one of the technicians. Body orientation inconsistent with front-facing trajectory, possible manipulation of narrative to match witness statement. Those words, handwritten in the margin, hint at internal disagreement, perhaps even resistance within the examiner's own team. So, how did a report like this stay buried for weeks? One hospital source claimed the document was marked restricted access and only shared with select investigators. It took a whistleblower to bring it to light, someone who couldn't stand to see the truth locked away. And now, with that single piece of evidence exposed, the entire case feels different. The press, once content with the official explanation, has gone quiet. The authorities are suddenly reviewing their findings, because this leak doesn't just raise questions about who pulled the trigger. It asks something far more dangerous. Who wanted the truth to stay hidden? The moment the leaked medical report hit the public domain, everything changed. Within hours, social media exploded with outrage. Hashtags demanding justice for Charlie Kirk trended across every platform. Comment sections filled with disbelief, not because people were shocked that something was wrong, but because they already suspected it. The report simply confirmed what millions had felt from day one, that the story we were told was never the full story. At first, officials tried to play it down. They called the leak unverified, potentially altered, and misleading, but it didn't matter. The document bore real case markings, timestamps, and the examiner's authentic signature, details too specific to fake. And when independent forensic experts analyzed the content, their verdict was unanimous. The data aligned perfectly with the back entry wound, just as the leaked file described. News outlets, once hesitant to challenge a narrative, began to shift their tone. Suddenly, the words re-examination, discrepancy, and cover-up appeared in headlines that once parroted the official statement. Former colleagues of Kirk demanded transparency. Even those closest to the investigation, people who had stayed silent out of fear, began to break ranks. One insider revealed that the preliminary report sent to higher-ups was altered before being made public. Specific phrases like rear entry wound were replaced with vague descriptions like impact site undetermined. The motivation? To avoid public confusion. But the result was something far worse. Public betrayal. As the outrage spread, protests began outside the university where the shooting occurred. Students held signs reading, "He deserved the truth," and "We want the real report." The mood was no longer just grief, it was anger, controlled, informed, and relentless. And while officials scrambled to control the damage, one thing has become clear. Whoever tried to bury the truth underestimated how far the public would go to uncover it. The leak didn't just expose a wound on Charlie Kirk's body. It opened a wound in the system itself, one that may never fully heal. As public outrage reached a boiling point, the pressure on investigators became impossible to ignore. For weeks, their confident tone had carried authority. Now it sounded hollow, defensive, rehearsed. The leaked medical report forced them into a corner. Suddenly, every press briefing was filled with sharp questions. Why was the trajectory data omitted? Who authorized the redactions? Why does the official version contradict forensic evidence? Behind the scenes, cracks widened within the investigative team itself. Anonymous insiders began leaking hints of infighting. Some wanted to come clean, others demanded silence. One detective reportedly threatened to resign unless the report was acknowledged publicly. Another was quietly transferred to a different division. It was clear this was no longer a simple homicide investigation. It had turned into a battle between truth and damage control. Meanwhile, the hunt for the shooter took a dramatic turn. Using the new medical evidence, independent ballistic experts reanalyzed surveillance footage, calculating possible firing positions. The conclusion was shocking. The shot could not have come from the location police originally identified. The angle, distance, and trajectory all pointed toward an elevated position behind Kirk's path, possibly from the west balcony or stairwell. That revelation dismantled weeks of certainty. Witnesses who had been dismissed as unreliable were suddenly vindicated. One student had claimed she saw a shadowy figure retreating from the upper level seconds after the shot, a detail once ignored, now crucial. Then came the silence. The department went dark, refusing interviews, removing online statements, even locking their own public database for security updates. It was a digital equivalent of shutting the blinds while the world screamed for answers. But in the age of leaks, silence only fuels suspicion. Investigators thought they could control the story. Instead, their refusal to speak made one thing certain. There's something or someone they're protecting. And now, with each piece of evidence contradicting their version, one question grows louder than ever. If Charlie Kirk wasn't facing his killer, then who was he turning away from? By now, the story of Charlie Kirk's final moments has evolved far beyond a single bullet or a single report. It's become a mirror, reflecting how truth can be twisted, hidden, and reshaped until it serves power instead of justice. But this time, it didn't work. This time, the truth clawed its way back to the surface. When the leaked medical report confirmed the bullet entered from behind, it didn't just rewrite the case. It rewrote our understanding of who Charlie Kirk really was in those last seconds. He wasn't the aggressor in a confrontation. He wasn't facing his killer. He was walking away. And someone, somewhere, didn't want the world to know that. Now, investigators are being forced to reopen what they once closed. Forensic analysts have returned to the scene. Ballistic tests are being rerun under public supervision. The medical examiner who signed off on the front entry version has reportedly been placed under review. The entire foundation of the official story is cracking one piece at a time. But behind the noise, behind the politics, the press conferences, and the spin, lies something far more human. A family still waiting for justice. Friends who still can't believe how fast his name was dragged through the mud. and a public who now understands that the truth doesn't die easily. It just takes time to fight its way out. As the camera pans out on this story, one thing remains clear. Whoever pulled that trigger thought they could silence Charlie Kirk forever. They were wrong. The truth still speaks, louder now than ever before. And maybe that's the real legacy here. Not the conspiracy, not the cover-up, but the undeniable fact that truth, no matter how long it's buried, always bleeds its way back into the light.